Finally, Raymond's car pulled up in front of a dilapidated building that matched the address Uzo had messaged. It was a one-story tenement with cracked walls and a rusted corrugated roof. His heart pounded as he stepped out into the warm, humid night. The street was dimly lit, with distant sounds of babies crying and radios playing Nigerian high-life music behind closed doors. Raymond's arrival drew a few curious glances. A shiny black SUV and a well-dressed man were unusual sights in this poor part of town, but he paid no heed. He approached the door marked by the number Uzo had given and knocked gently. Uzo opened the door, holding a small battery-powered lantern. In its glow, Raymond saw a tall, lanky teenager with familiar eyes, his own eyes, and a wary, hopeful expression. It took all of Raymond's self-control not to scoop the boy into a hug right then and there. But he knew he must seem like a stranger to Uzo, so instead, he offered a gentle smile. "Hello, you must be Uzo," he said softly. Uzo nodded, a bit shyly. He had never seen a man like Raymond up close. The gentleman was dressed in a crisp shirt, and despite the late hour and obvious rush he had been in, he carried himself with an air of quiet authority and concern. Uzo stepped aside to let him in. "Thank you for coming, sir. I still can't believe you actually came," he murmured. Inside, the room was small and sparse. The plaster on the walls was peeling, and a thin curtain separated the main area from the sleeping space. On a worn mattress in the corner lay Evelyn. She had woken at the sound of voices and struggled to sit up, propping herself weakly against the wall. The light was dim, but Raymond would have known her face anywhere, even after all these years. His breath caught as he saw her. She was thinner, and her once lively eyes were now tired and sunken, but it was undeniably her. Evelyn Okafor, the love of his youth, the one he had never been able to forget, was right there only a few steps away. Evelyn blinked as if trying to be sure she wasn't dreaming. In the low light, she saw a tall figure enter behind her son. As he stepped forward, the light fell on his face. That face, older, more chiseled, yet so achingly familiar. Evelyn's heart skipped and then pounded so hard she felt faint. "Raymond?" she whispered, voice trembling with shock. She wondered if perhaps her illness was making her hallucinate. How could he be here, in her home, after all this time? At the sound of his name on her lips, Raymond could no longer hold back. He crossed the small room in 2 strides and knelt at Evelyn's bedside. Up close, he saw tears glistening in her eyes, and he realized his own vision was blurring with tears too. "Evelyn, it's me," he said in a husky voice. He reached out hesitantly, taking her thin hand in his warm, steady grasp. It felt so natural to hold her hand again, yet so surreal. For a moment, he simply gazed at her, emotions choking him so much that words failed. Then, gently, as if afraid she might break, Raymond brushed a stray lock of hair from her face. "I found you. After all these years, I found you," he breathed, a tear escaping down his cheek. Evelyn let out a soft sob, raising her other hand to cover her mouth. She couldn't believe he was real. He looked older, yes, a few strands of gray at his temples, the boyish roundness of his face gone. But his eyes were just the same, gentle and full of love. Instinctively, she squeezed his fingers. "Raymond, I thought I'd never see you again," she managed to say, voice thick with tears. Her mind raced. How was he here? How did he even know? Behind them, Uzo watched this reunion with wide eyes. The way his mother and this man looked at each other, it was as if time had stopped for them. He had never seen his mother look at anyone like that, with equal parts joy and pain. And the stranger, Raymond, his eyes were filled with tears and a tenderness that confused Uzo. How did this rich man know his mother so intimately? A realization was beginning to dawn on him, but he stood rooted to the spot, afraid to believe it. Raymond and Evelyn were oblivious to anything else for that brief moment. Raymond shook his head regretfully. "I'm so sorry, Evelyn. I never got your letters or I would have come. I swear I would have. I didn't know. I looked for you when I came back, but you were gone." His words tumbled out, years of pent-up longing and remorse pouring from him. He held her hand a bit tighter, as if to reassure himself that she was truly there. "All this time, I thought about you every day, and tonight I got this voicemail by pure chance, and when I heard your name—" His voice broke slightly, and he glanced over his shoulder at Uzo, who was hovering uncertainly. I had to come. I had to see if it was you." Evelyn followed his gaze to her son. She saw the bewildered look on Uzo's face and knew he deserved to know the truth. Her heart was pounding. Part of her wanted to cry out, "Why did it take so long, Raymond?" But another part was filled with gratitude that he was here now when they needed him most. Gently, she beckoned Uzo closer. "Uzo, baby, come here," she said softly. Uzo stepped forward, clutching the lantern in one hand. Evelyn reached out and took his hand in her free one. With Raymond holding her other hand, she looked from her son to her first love, tears streaming down her face. "Uzo," Evelyn whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "Do you know who this is?" Uzo looked at Raymond, seeing the man's eyes filled with tears and hope, and then back at his mother. He had begun to suspect as much, but hearing his mother's tone, the reality hit him like a tidal wave. His mouth went dry. "Mom, is he—" He couldn't finish the question, his 17-year-old mind both amazed and afraid to say the words. Evelyn nodded, a sob of joy breaking through. "Yes, son. This is Raymond, the man I told you about in my stories, the one I loved so much." She took a shaky breath. He's your father." The world seemed to stop for a heartbeat as those words hung in the air. Uzo's eyes widened, and he looked at Raymond with a mixture of awe, confusion, and overwhelming emotion. He felt a surge of warmth in his chest and a sting of tears in his eyes. His father? The kind, brave man from his mother's bedtime stories? The one who he thought was lost to them forever? Raymond wasn't some distant dream anymore. He was real, kneeling right here, holding his mother's hand. Raymond's face crumpled as emotion overtook him. He had suspected it, but hearing Evelyn confirm that Uzo was his son shook him to his core. Tears he had held back now freely fell. He turned fully toward Uzo, still kneeling, and cautiously reached out as if wanting to embrace him, but unsure if it would be welcome. "Uzo, my boy," he said in a choked whisper. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you all these years. I didn't know. I'm so sorry." Before he could say more, Uzo, who was rarely an openly emotional kid, suddenly dropped to his knees too and threw his arms around Raymond. A sob burst from the boy's throat, all the pent-up longing for a father he never had coming out at once. Raymond immediately wrapped his arms around his son, holding him tight as if he might disappear. Evelyn watched, covering her mouth with her hand, tears pouring as she witnessed father and son embrace for the first time. It was a moment of profound, bittersweet joy. Joy for the reunion, bitter for the years lost. Mother, father, and son clung to each other in that tiny room, united by tears and love. Raymond gently ran a hand over Uzo's back, comforting him, while his own tears dampened the boy's shoulder. He kept murmuring apologies and words of love. "It's okay. I'm here now. I've got you. I've got you both," Uzo managed to say between sobs. I can't believe you're here. Dad." The word dad felt foreign on his tongue, but also right. Raymond pulled back slightly to look at Uzo's face when he heard that, his heart swelling. It was the first time his son had called him dad. He cupped Uzo's face in his hands gently, seeing the traces of himself and Evelyn in this young man. "Yes, "I'm your dad," he affirmed, voice trembling yet filled with happiness. "And I'm never going to leave you or your mother again, I promise." Evelyn reached out, and the three of them joined in a tight hug, Evelyn in her bed leaning into the embrace. For the first time in so very long, she felt a sense of peace. Her family, their family, was together at last. Uzo's arms were around her too, and she could feel his tears of joy on her shoulder. Though physically weak, Evelyn felt stronger in that moment than she had in years. She closed her eyes, silently thanking God or fate, or whatever miracle had brought Raymond to them. After a while they eased apart, and Raymond insisted on checking Evelyn's condition. She was clearly very ill. Up close, even in the dim light, he could see how pale she was, how labored her breathing. It terrified him that he might have found her only to lose her again to illness. Raymond gently wiped her tears with a handkerchief and squeezed her hand. "I heard you're not well, my love," he said softly, the endearment slipping out naturally, making Evelyn's breath hitch. "I'm going to get you the best care, I promise. I'm taking you to a good hospital first thing, even tonight if possible." Evelyn opened her mouth to protest weakly. She knew how expensive hospitals were, and she didn't want to be a burden. But Raymond shushed her softly. "Please, let me do this. I have the means now. You don't have to worry about anything. Just focus on getting better." He turned to Uzo, placing a firm, reassuring hand on the boy's shoulder. "We'll make sure your mum gets well, okay? I'll make some calls right now." Uzo nodded, relief flooding through him like a wave. He believed Raymond, his father, without question. Something about the way Raymond spoke, with calm confidence, made him feel like a huge weight was being lifted off his back. For the first time in weeks, Uzo felt hope blaze in his chest. He watched as Raymond pulled out a smartphone and stepped aside to make a flurry of calls, speaking with authority. Words like private clinic, specialist doctor, and advance payment drifted over. It struck Uzo that this man was a powerful figure, someone used to getting things done, and he was using that power for them, something Uzo had never experienced from anyone outside of his mom before. Evelyn rested against the wall, her eyes never leaving Raymond's silhouette as he talked on the phone. It felt so surreal. Here he was, after so long, still caring for her, calling her my love, as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. He had missed 17 years of their lives. A flicker of old hurt surfaced. Why hadn't he found a way sooner? But she knew in her heart it wasn't truly his fault. The blame lay with the cruel circumstances and perhaps his parents' meddling. Evelyn's eyes wandered to the ceiling as she silently let go of that old resentment. He was here now. That's what mattered. Within an hour, Raymond had arranged everything. An ambulance from a reputable private hospital arrived in the narrow streets, guided by the address he provided. Neighbors peeked curiously from their windows as medics carefully helped Evelyn onto a stretcher. She insisted on walking to the ambulance until her knees nearly buckled, and Raymond swiftly scooped her up in his arms. "It's okay. I've got you," he murmured, carrying her the rest of the way. Evelyn was too weak to argue, and secretly she felt safe in his arms, remembering a time when he carried her playfully after a picnic by the lagoon. Uzo followed close behind, holding his mother's hand while she lay on the stretcher, and then climbing into the ambulance beside her. Raymond joined them for the ride, refusing to leave their side for a moment. As the ambulance wove through late-night Lagos traffic with its siren blaring softly, Evelyn drifted in and out of a light sleep, exhaustion overtaking her now that the adrenaline of the reunion had settled. Each time she opened her eyes, she saw Raymond there, one hand wrapped around hers, and the other resting on Uzo's back comfortingly as the boy leaned against him. The sight made her feel at ease. Whatever awaited them at the hospital, they would face it together now. Over the next few days, Evelyn was admitted to a private hospital where she underwent thorough examinations. The doctors confirmed she had a serious heart condition that had been exacerbated by years of untreated hypertension and an infection that had damaged a valve. They recommended an urgent surgery to repair her heart, as well as medication to manage her condition. Thanks to Raymond's immediate financial guarantee, the hospital proceeded with top-notch care. Evelyn received proper treatment, good nutrition, and was scheduled for the life-saving surgery within the week. Throughout this time, Raymond was a constant pillar of support. He stayed by Evelyn's side day and night, taking time off from his responsibilities without a second thought. He and Uzo often sat together by her bed, talking to her, keeping her spirits up. Despite everything, those days in the hospital turned into a precious time for the small family to bond. In the quiet afternoons, Raymond would tell stories of his own, of how he built his company, of places he traveled, always glancing at Uzo to see his reactions, as if trying to make up for lost time by sharing pieces of his life. Uzo, in turn, shared his school experiences, his love for drawing, a talent which, to Raymond's delight, the boy seemed to have inherited from him, and little things about growing up with his mom. They laughed and even cried together, forging a connection that felt both new and yet naturally familiar. Evelyn watched these interactions from her hospital bed with a full heart. She saw how gently Raymond brushed back Uzo's hair as he listened to his son talk, and how eagerly Uzo sought Raymond's approval or laughed at his jokes. It was as if a missing piece of each of them had been found. She often found herself wiping tears of happiness, despite her illness. However, not everyone shared their joy. When Raymond's parents learned where he had been spending his time, they were furious. It was inevitable that they would find out. Raymond had basically moved into the hospital for days, and he hadn't been home or to several important meetings. His mother finally reached him on the phone, and he didn't hide the truth. In fact, he told her point blank, "I'm with Evelyn. Yes, that Evelyn. And our son, my son, your grandson. She was sick, but I'm making sure she gets better." There was dead silence on the other end, followed by his mother's stammering attempt to protest. Raymond simply told his parents that once Evelyn was well, he'd be bringing her and Uzo to meet them, and he expected them to treat her with the respect she deserved. The day before Evelyn's surgery, to no one's surprise, Mr. and Mrs. Attawale showed up at the hospital, demanding to speak with Raymond outside the room. Raymond stepped into the hallway, leaving the door slightly ajar. Inside, Evelyn and Uzo exchanged anxious glances. They could hear muffled voices. Evelyn's heart rate quickened with nerves. She could imagine exactly what was being said. In the corridor, Mr. Attawale's face was red with anger and indignation. He spoke in a harsh whisper, not wanting to cause a scene in the hospital, but his tone was biting. "After all these years, Raymond, you go and dig up this woman and bring that boy into our lives? How do you even know he's yours?" Raymond felt a surge of anger, but kept his voice low and controlled. "Because I trust Evelyn, and because I can count. He's exactly the age he should be if you hadn't interfered with our lives." He looked his father in the eye, a firmness there that hadn't been present in his youth. "Father, Mother, I lost 17 years with Evelyn and Uzo because of what you did. I won't lose another day. They are my family." His mother stepped forward, eyes full of worry and frustration. "We did what we thought was best for you, Raymond, and look at you now. You're successful. You have a reputation to uphold. This situation could ruin everything. Think of the scandal. A secret son born out of wedlock. The press will have a field day if they discover this. And that woman has a name," Raymond interjected sharply. "Evelyn is the mother of my child, and the woman I have always loved. I don't care what anyone thinks or says anymore. If my reputation changes because I acknowledge them, then so be it. I'll gladly tell the world that Uzo is my son." His voice softened slightly, but remained firm. "Mother, I know you think you were protecting me, but you cost me the chance to be with the woman I loved, and to see my son grow up. Can you imagine what that's like? To miss all those years, not knowing you had a child out there? I won't let you or father or anyone take them away again. Mr. Attawale's jaw clenched. We won't accept this. That boy was raised in a slum. And she, he all but snarled, she trapped you, can't you see? Probably she told him to call some relative hoping to squeeze money from us, and by chance it reached you. How convenient.